This is another episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. We have another great interview for you. You've heard this guy many times on the show. I've shared his comedy. We've done a couple interviews, but he's back again. Why? Because he's such a talented, successful, and funny stand-up comic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, Marc Yaffee.
God, thank you, man. It's good to be back. I wouldn't say I'm back for those reasons listed above as much as I got way too much time on my hands, and there were some more famous comedians who were unavailable today.
Well, that is not true. There are more famous people, but not as dedicated to stand-up comedy, prolific in doing entertainment, and really, you are performing all the time. Now, right now, you're out doing another cruise show, correct?
Yeah, I'm on a 7-week contract with Holland America. Usually, like most comedians, we're fly on, fly off entertainers. Usually our contracts are anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks. And this one,
how do you do 7 weeks? Explain that.
Well, you get off the ship. First of all, I'm not
A prisoner?
I'm not a prisoner yet. I have not been picked up by security yet, although they do follow me around once in a while when I'm in the shop. I go between Seattle and then the port stops are Juneau, Sitka, and Ketchikan. So you get off the ship, you can go roam around, or you can just stay on the ship if you want. And
but they're changing the passengers.
New passengers every week. They would be sick of my stuff after a couple of weeks.
Right. So you're on for 7 weeks, but every week is a new set of passengers. And then are you doing, 2 shows for each group?
Yes. So when I got on the ship, it was repositioning from the South Pacific. So I did a Hawaii to Seattle crossing, and that was like 6 days at sea. And I did do my two nights, 2 shows a night. So I did that for them. And then I'm in this Alaska run back and forth, new passengers every Sunday to Sunday, and 4 shows a week, 2 nights, pretty easy peasy, especially I see the poor band, and the onboard, like the billboard on, but they have dueling pianos and they're working 6 nights a week. So
wow.
I'm glad I didn't learn to play an instrument.
Well, it's a long gig for a cruise gig, but as I was alluding to earlier, I mean, you've done television, you do comedy clubs all over the country, you've done some festivals, you've done some international work and some festivals, but cruises, especially at this time of what's happening in comedy, is really a solid gig. And even though this is a long 7-week contract, you've done several in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think the longest one I'd done before this was 3 weeks, but 7 weeks it gets broke up too. I get to have Holland allows me to have a guest on board, so I had a buddy who produces some comedy shows up in Sonoma County last week. The week before that, my fiance came on. So that's nice too. You have some friends and family that can join you. So that breaks it up.
But it's a long time at sea, Mark. I mean, but now here's something that I'm sure the audience is curious about. Do you do special material for the cruise audience because it's a cruise audience, or is a lot of your regular act? And we should remind everybody, you're one of the few Native American comics in the country. You come out of Reno, Nevada, but the fact that you're a Native American or Indian comic does add a hook, a twist that gets you into a lot of shows. But when you're on a cruise, are you doing your regular sets, or you kind of have a cruise-friendly set?
Well, I have cruise-friendly in the fact that Holland America in particular versus Carnival or some other cruise lines, they like PG-13. They like funny enough
family shows.
So I clean that up. Family shows has some adult themes, but I do throw in some stuff I wouldn't do on land with some inside stuff, like the toilets are vacuum flush, so make sure you close the lid, because I didn't the first time on the ship and I had to replace 2 towels and a shower curtain. I wouldn't do that on land. I talk about some little things about like my sister. My sister, I joke about this. Again, I wouldn't do it on land, but I have a sister who won't cruise because she's worried about rough seas. Now, she lives on the northern coast of California in a tsunami zone on top of the San Andreas Fault.
But
So
she's worried about a
she'll
cruise.
roll the dice, yeah, with mega quakes and tidal waves, but she won't risk possible seasickness. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it is something that I think most people, especially our age, but anybody over 40 or 50 may have experienced a cruise. But when you're an entertainer on a cruise ship, it's totally different. You're not really part of the crew and you're not a passenger. You're almost this, solo beast cruising.
I'm a hybrid. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it is particularly noticeable like when you go to check in at the terminal, they have third parties, people that work with the cruise line, and these people are part, and they have no idea. Oh yeah, I'm a guest guest, because there's maybe one guest entertainer a week out of 1,500 or 3,000 or 5,000 passengers that are cycling through that terminal. So they don't know what you're doing. They're like, what is this guy doing? And you get to the front counter and they have to ask 20 questions, and it gets done eventually. But it is a nice status though, because I'm fortunate that I don't have to do like the crew drills. I get to participate and like if I want to do guest activities, I can go do play in a ping pong tournament or eat in the dining room. Whereas the crew, they're a little restricted on where they can or can't go and on their off hours. So
So you do get the benefit of the passenger experience. You can go to the buffets, eat in the restaurants, and see the shows to help fill your time, even though you are one of the entertainers.
Right. Like I definitely like to go watch some of the other shows. There's been a couple of Australian musical acts that have been on here. One was a family, this McCoy fan. They were amazing. They had two daughters, the mom and dad, and they're just playing all this great music with violins and a guitar, but it was mostly rock and then there's another vocalist on board next week. It was discovered on in Instagram. Did an Aretha Franklin tour for like 2 years. Found on his now she so I go and see these things. I got a Rolling Stone at sea, so I like those perks. You get to if you, not I don't I have enough to do. I feel like I'm not bored, but it is nice to go see some other entertainment
And you get a chance to get off ship, which is so important. I've done a fair amount of cruising when I owned my travel agency, and the cruising was an experience, but it can get old fast. But getting on and off the boat and seeing the different locations certainly helps fill the time. Have you found that the audiences are as receptive as, let's say, in a comedy club, or is it like working corporate and it's important to keep everybody focused?
Well, I think it's a split thing. Like the audiences may not be as demonstrative or boisterous or laughing as hard as they might in a comedy club. But then you see these people for the other rest of the week, and they're all coming up to you and saying how much they like the show, which you wouldn't have once people walk out of a comedy club. You're not going to run into them probably at the store, at an airport. That'd be a very random thing. But here, you keep cycling among the passengers, and then they start to oh yeah, we really love your show, and 2-3 days later, yeah, we can't wait for your next show. So you do build a little bit of a fan base, which a one-on-one fan base, which you wouldn't get on a land gig because you keep
right. And of course, at a comedy club, there's always that risk of a heckler. But I imagine in a cruise situation, the audience is a little more muted. You're not getting drunks, right?
This cruise ship, there's a little older crowd, so I don't deal with hecklers. I might have an occasional napper. I work Carnival too, and the Carnival can have some hecklers once in a while, but I think my style, because I work at a pretty rapid pace, I think it's people aren't sure where to kind of jump in and try to misdirect the show or speak up. So I've been fortunate just to land and cruise ship gigs to not have too many problems with hecklers, but I have some stuff ready for them if it's necessary, but fortunately I haven't had to.
Well, one of the best tools against hecklers is being really funny, somebody that people can relate to. And with that in mind, are you still, now I know your act, or at least I knew your act from back in the 90s, but is there still a pretty good influx of American Indian phased material? You used to kind of start off that way to introduce yourself. It does set the hook as far as who you are and what you're coming from. but I imagine you're probably doing less of that material. I'm just guessing. I'm asking. Do you use less of that material these days, or on the cruise ships?
Probably about the same. I write some new stuff on that, and I use some, you say our greatest hits because people haven't seen you before. So I like some jokes. I'll just keep them in the set. So the short answer is it's I do some, but I don't spend too much time on it.
I know, Mark, that you do a lot of the Native American festivals and get-together, and in that case, then you can lean heavily on that material that's what's it like to be a Native American in America today. That's what I was thinking, the comparison. And really for you, what's interesting, because you're such a pro and you've been in this for over 30 years now, must have kind of a show for cruises, a show for comedy clubs, and a show for the Native American festivals. Is that true, or is it all just Marc Yaffee?
No, it's mostly Mark Yaffee. There's some carryover. I'll do a little more. I'll lean if I'm at a tribal event and tribal Christmas party or something. I'll lean more into some native stuff and what's relatable. You're in a comedy club. You might be talking more about people partying and drinking and more relationship stuff. I'm a cruise ship. I might talk more about the locations where we're going and the cultural differences. So it's basically the same shell of the set that I like with some variations and move some things around
But you have to be somewhat versatile, and again, because of your experience and you have a good knack for writing comedy, I won't say it's easy. I'm sure you have to put some work at it, but you do have a variety of material you can grab onto when you need to.
Yeah, I'm fortunate with that, and I do have a lot of time I can write during the day. I'm not commuting to gigs. I'm not having to fly to a new city and rent a car and drive 2 hours to get to a casino or an hour to get to a comedy club. So it does give you some time to go through your set, work on new stuff, and change
Yeah,
hone things.
imagine being on a cruise and you do have some downtime that you have the ability to focus on writing from time to time to kind of keep yourself sharp.
Yeah, and the downside is you do get less reps. You're not getting on stage as much unless I work, Carnival, I'm doing 5 or 10 shows a week. Here I'm doing the same. I'm doing two sets repeated. So you try to move new stuff in, but there's stuff I'd like to work out. I'm working on some stuff about my mom having dementia. And it's a touchy subject. I know you've had, your wife and your family you've been through this, and I want to make it where it's accessible and people can see there's some humor in it because we've got humor out of pain. But to introduce it, especially in an older audience, it's very, I've kind of dipped into it and they've laughed at one joke. You try to go deeper and they're like, oh, we're not ready for this, So
Yeah.
so
Well,
that's home.
that's a great segue to where I wanted to ask you about. Now, being on a ship for
Sure.
7 weeks, you home base is Reno. You have family, and you are dealing with aging parents, as you and I have both discussed and been through together. Are you balancing your personal life with your professional life when you're getting these kind of long-term gigs? It's got to add a little pressure to your life.
Well, yeah, it does. I'm fortunate. My mom, she's in a group home. She's 95 and she lives right by my sister, who's is 10 minutes away from her, and she's a nurse, so she's good at managing her
Oh,
care.
that's a great setup right there.
Right. And if they, are trying to over medicate her or they're making too many visits and needless visits, she's right on it. She has a good relationship with caregiver staff and then the local clinic there where they're at. It's a real rural area in Mendocino Coast. So that's fine. I mean, my fiance, the beauty of FaceTime and Zoom, things like this is you can still communicate with people, and the internet would be a lot harder than I met this couple last night. They worked on the cruise ships in the 90s and then they ended up moving to America. They're Filipino and now they have this good life in America. And they're like, oh yeah, we had to use payphone, or you had to, you call home maybe once a week if you're lucky. And they were basically people were when you were at sea, you were pretty restricted. Now, thanks to internet and satellites, we can stay in contact. But yeah, it's a little tough. My fiance's dealing with some health issues. She has a shoulder injury, and I'd like to be home helping work around the yard and helping her stay and give her a break. But it's kind of hard to mow your lawn when you're on the ship in Alaska.
Yeah, we should mention that you've been doing the Alaska run, which is some beautiful country and great cruises going up that way. Well, tell you what, you've been doing cruises and these tribal functions. What's coming up next? I'm sure you're going to be done with cruising for a little bit, or are you kind of leaning that way to keep your the money coming in?
Well, fortunately, I'll be done. I won't have a super long contract like that. They'll all be 3 to 5 days. In June, I'm doing a tribal event over in near you in Wheatland, and then I'm
Wait,
doing.
it's no offense. I'm going to interrupt. Going from beautiful Anchorage in Alaska to Wheatland, that's like a culture shock right there.
Right? It's like a Ferrari to a Toyota, right?
I think you're being generous, but Wheatland people are lovely.
Yeah, no, it's I'm doing the tribe. There's I guess someone is retiring, and they wanted to have me do the show.
Oh, you're working one of the tribal functions. Okay.
And I'm doing I'm actually going to go. I've never done a cruise out of England, so I'm going to cruise out of Dover, England, and then going to Belfast. So I'll be interested to see if it's mostly British people or if there's a bunch of Americans there. And because my humor is definitely American centric with some of the references, and talk about homeschooling or talk about Home Depot or things like that. I'll be like, what's this bloke talking about? So we'll see what happens.
Well, I thought you had done some international gigs before. Have you had limited experience overseas besides the cruises?
Well, mostly Armed Forces Entertainment. So you say,
That's
well, yeah,
what I thought. USO shows, right?
I'm in Germany, I'm in Okinawa, I'm in Singapore. Yeah, but that means there may be some, like I did a lot of the bases would have, especially when we went to Iraq, they'd have British troops or Australian but it's not like I was like an all British or all Dutch or something. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see what the mix is for that. And I might try to find out ahead of time and mess with the set a little bit to make it more user friendly, if you will.
Well, I got to tell you, it's such an honor to have you on the podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, like I said, you can go back and look for his sets on some of my shows, previous interviews. Always great to have you on the podcast. What's incredible is we're both older, but you're a lot younger than me, but we're both in that later stage. We're not in our 20s bouncing around strip clubs doing comedy. We're at a phase where doing cruises is really the payoff from all the years of hard work, because on the cruises you got a bed to sleep on, you're getting the food, you're getting the entertainment, and you're getting paid to be there to do your shows, which you'd be doing anyway. But in your case, you're doing the casinos, you're doing the comedy clubs, you're doing the cruises, you've been worldwide doing USO shows. A real wealth of opportunity and experience, Mark. Congratulations on your career.
I've been blessed, and fortunately, I had people like you early on give me a chance and Laos Unlimited when I wasn't quite ready. But I think you saw something there, and you were kind enough to share some of your wisdom and insights and give me the stage time. So that I can't have anything but love for you, and I wouldn't be there if it hadn't been the open mic nights and the showcases and the one nighters and Winnemucca, Nevada. So it's all a buildup, and so many people have been actually so many people have been supportive, but few have been as influential as you have been, and I can't ever thank you enough for that.
Oh, well, you're very welcome, and I should let the audience know that I was able to work you a lot back in the 90s, but only because you work cheap.
That's exactly it. I would drive 2 hours from a small town called Kelseyville, California, to Old Sac to do a weekend for not a lot of money, but some decent food. Okay, the food wasn't that good, but it was quite good.
And I'm joking. You got paid like everybody else, but
You
it
were,
was,
you were always fair. I never felt cheated. I felt, you get your first $100 in comedy, you think you've hit the lottery. It's
yeah.
they're paying me to do this. I get to drive to Lebanon, Oregon to do 30 minutes in front of a drunk bar full of hillbillies. Yeah, that's fun. It's nothing against Lebanon, Oregon. I love Oregon, but yeah, it's all a great experience. And
Well, what's interesting, it's all about, that's the foundation of this career choice, right? If you're going to be in this industry and you're going to be an entertainer, whether it's a musician or a dancer or a singer, you got to go through what's called the road of hard knocks and kind of earn your place. And I was very proud to be one of those places that you got a chance to learn your trade and hone your skills as a writer and as a comic. And the fact that you've gone on to, USO shows and cruise ships and big tribal events just proves that we were both right. You're a talented, funny guy. And the fact that you've blessed us with sharing some of this information on the podcast. Thank you so much, Marc.
Well, thank you, man. And folks are welcome to look at my social media, laughwithmarc.com, MARC. My parents couldn't spell. And I'm also launching another tour with a friend, Jimmy Delavalle. We are doing a Clean Comedy Kings tour. So, because people, clean comedy's coming back, and there's, the people I've talked to, I have a friend that does some bookings. He said, "Where do you have clean comedy? We need more clean comedy." So we're like, "Oh, we'll do a clean comedy show." Not that I won't, do adult if necessary, but there seems to be a niche for it, and thanks to venues like Dry Bar and some other outlets, that's gotten people more interested in doing that in venues. So hopefully in the next year we'll be doing a bunch of those, and I'll be at the top floor of the Hilton doing this interview, maybe instead of the bottom of the ship.
Well, Marc, we appreciate it. Everybody, it's laughwithmarc.com. Laughwithmarc, MARC.com. Get more information and learn about these future shows. And I agree. And as you know from Laughs Unlimited, I always prefer clean comedy. It's a little bit harder, a little bit more work, but generally with the audiences, it works better. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a little bit of Marc's stand-up comedy to share with you, but I'm going to let Marc get back to his ship duties. Marc, thanks for being on the show this week.
Thanks again, Scott. Continued success of the podcast.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a little comedy by Marc Yaffee.
Now there's a whole cottage industry has popped up over dog poop. I don't know if you have that here in your area. They have these franchises, Poop 911, a Scoop Soldier, No Dookie Left Behind. These guys come to the house and clean up your dog shit for you. And they identify themselves as pet waste removal specialists. Like there's some sort of training involved in this shit. Shit, I was a pet waste removal specialist at age 5. My mom handed me a shovel and said, "Pick up the caca and don't get your shoes dirty." But they're making money, evidently. I courted one of these Poop 911 guys coming out of my neighbor's yard. I said, "How's busy?" He goes, "We're making a shit ton of money." We had 2 COVIDs in America. People forget that. We had red state COVID and blue state COVID. 2 completely different pandemics, right? Shit, blue state COVID was the worst thing to hit the planet since the Black Plague of the 1300s, and red state COVID was the biggest hoax since Milli Vanilli. Blue state COVID, remember blue state COVID, the lockdowns went on for weeks and months. Red state COVID lockdowns lasted 3-4 happy hours. Shit, remember the blue state at the peak of COVID? If you wanted to go to a restaurant and eat, they put you at a parking garage a mile from the restaurant. They fed you through an IV drip so you wouldn't open your mouth and chew. Shit, if you were in a red state, Florida, Texas, you had to eat inside. They made you lick the menu and share utensils. Prove you weren't a COVID co-conspirator. Fucking blue state, people were wearing masks to Zoom meetings. Red state, people show up at Sam's Club, no mask or pants. Freedom! I think the craziest place to be during the pandemic, 30,000 feet. Did anyone fly during COVID? That shit was nuts. You had drunk people right on the plane fighting over masks and politics and seat assignments. That was just the pilots. You flew to Maui, drunk people on the plane. It got so bad, Frontier came out with the Friends Fight Free promotion. Every day there was some new brawl, some drunk guy beating up the other passengers, the flight attendants. The airlines were diverting flights and making emergency landings. Finally said, "Screw it, no more, we're not stopping." They unleashed a secret weapon against drunk people nobody saw coming. That secret weapon on the plane was duct tape. You remember that shit? They started duct tape. Did you know they had duct tape inside the plane? I knew Spirit Airlines had duct tape on the outside of the plane. That's cruel, unusual, and brilliant. I brought a couple extra rolls just in case. I said, shit, I got a big gig in Pensacola, Florida at the Ha Ha Tata's Comedy Strip Club, and I'm not missing out because Air Age Alex didn't get enough pretzels. And now there is a proposal being floated before we fly that we will have to weigh in to get on the plane. Really? Good luck with that. Can you get people to be sober or put on their seatbelt? I don't even think this weigh-in shit is for safety. I think they're trying to categorize us by fighting weight classifications. Yeah, wait till you get to your next flight and hear this announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has removed the fasten seatbelt sign. Let's get ready to rumble! Marc Yaffee, you guys have been awesome.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand Up Comedy, Your Host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.